republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started with the business at hand tonight, I just wanted to kind of let everybody know, we usually don't have a crowd here, but we got one tonight. So basically give you kind of a rundown of what will be taking place tonight. We have to do a few things for last meeting's business, take care of that. We will then open the public hearing. We'll listen to both sides. The staff will present, then petitioner will present. You guys will have a chance to speak. Not everybody has to speak. Everybody will have a chance to speak if they want to. Not everybody will have to speak during the public hearing itself, but there will be time for public comment at the end, so don't feel like you have to hurry and get everything in, but take your time. We'll hear everybody. Then we'll go ahead and have some discussion. We'll vote on whether we'll recommend your petition for variance to the board or not, and then we'll go from there. Madam Clerk, can you please take the roll?
Pacia,
Here.
Vargas, Sepasi, Fritz,
Here.
Bettenhausen, Gaskell,
Here.
Fitzgerald.
Here. That's just enough for a quorum. We've got 4 people, so that'll makes it an official meeting. Stephanie, is there any communications?
We will not have a meeting on November 9th because I do not have any new petitions in. I heard you. Sorry. We'll speak up. So we will not have a meeting on November 9th. And unless you guys want to come eat some turkey here on the 23rd, we will not have a meeting on the 23rd because that's Thanksgiving. So November, we won't have any ZBA meetings, just so you know.
Okay. No November meetings. Okay. Next item on the agenda is, is there any other communications from any of the people on the board? Seeing that there are none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the September 14th, 2017 regular meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion from the board on those minutes?
None.
Seeing that there is none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the September 14th meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. That brings us to item number 1 of the public hearing. It is a public hearing regarding the property at 6200 167th Street for variations from the setback requirements and maximum floor area of structures. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion. Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of opening the public hearing, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, before we begin with the part of the staff report, we need to have everybody sworn in. So if you're planning to speak tonight, I would ask that anyone that's going to speak, please stand and raise your right hand. Okay.
You might as well do it in case you want to speak.
In case anybody, public comment, you don't have to swear an oath for that. It's just for the hearing you have to swear. Okay. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. All right. Went a little out of order there. I already mentioned what the public hearing would be. We are going to, for the maximum floor area for an accessory structure and a variation from the setback requirement for a pavilion at the address of 6200 167th Street. We are going to consider recommending that the village board grant the petitioner, Faith United Presbyterian Church, the following variations. A 10-foot variation from section 3H1 of the zoning ordinance, where the required front yard setback for an accessory structure is 40 feet in the R1 single-family residential zoning district, and a 336 square foot variation from section 3(1) 2B of the zoning ordinance, where the maximum floor area for an accessory structure is 720 square feet. These variations would allow the petitioner to construct a 1,056 square foot pavilion at a 30-foot setback from the west property line, which is Gaynell Road, at 6200 167th Street in the R1 Single Family Residential Zoning District. Stephanie, would you like to start with the staff report?
Yep. Can you confirm that the notices were sent out?
Yes, I have that right here. The notices was properly noticed in the paper.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the reminder on that.
Just want to make sure we cross all our T's and dot our I's.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. So as Chairman Fitzgerald mentioned, tonight we're here for a public hearing for Faith United Presbyterian Church's request for a pavilion. And they are requesting a variance for both the size of the pavilion and the location of the pavilion. Here is a photo that they provided to us that looks similar to the pavilion they're proposing. This is at the Park District Park at about 80th and 168th or so here in Tinley Park. I'm not sure if this is the exact one you're going to use, but it's similar.
Barb, get the password. Go ahead.
Okay.
I have pictures, but I just want to submit that.
Here is an aerial image of the subject property. It is located in the northeast corner of Gaynell Road and 167th Street. The property is zoned R1. This is a zoning map showing the surrounding zoning. There are some unincorporated parcels, which are the ones that you see that do not have color on top of them. There are portions of Kimberly Heights and also the surrounding area that are not incorporated. However, the majority of the zoning around this particular parcel is R1, and then south of 167th Street, the zoning is R4, which is what you see in that more orange sort of color there. Here's another photo of the similar pavilion. And this is the petitioner's request. So they're looking to have this pavilion in the west side of their front yard. They do have two front yards because they are a corner lot, and that's very typical of some of the cases we see here at the zoning board. It's typically for the front yard setback for a corner lot. Usually it's fences, but today it's for a pavilion. And so they're wanting to have it at a 30-foot setback instead of the required 40 front yard setback. The R1 district requires 40 feet. We made this graphic here so you could see on the aerial what that might look like, and we did our best to scale their plans to the aerial image as well, so that it was pretty close to accurate to what they've supplied as far as plans. You can see the property line there with the red dash line and the required setback in the yellow dash line, and the proposed pavilion in the red square. The dimensions of that pavilion are 44 by 24, and that's just a little over 1,000 square feet. In fact, 1,056 square feet. And so not only is the location something they need a variance for, the size of the pavilion is something they need a variance for, because it is 336 square feet larger than what we allow by code. All accessory structures are limited to a maximum of 720 square feet. So what we did with our analysis, as we do for every report, is we see, are there any other locations that this can work? Are there any other sizes that they could use that would make it meet code? Our goal as staff is to make sure that the code is met. So in the report and on the screen here, you'll see some images that we created that show alternate locations as well as alternate size that would meet code. On your screen here, you can see we have 4 alternate locations that we thought of. There are obviously some more locations, but we wanted to show some of the main areas. They have actually a lot of green space to work with within that yellow dashed line area, so we wanted to highlight some of the possible locations. And our zoning administrator actually met on site several months ago with the petitioner to explain these options as well. So I'm sure they'll want to talk more about these possible locations during their part of the presentation. Location A is just south of the building. Here's a photo of where that might be placed. You can see there's sort of a grassy knoll here currently, and they could potentially put the pavilion here. Location B, which is the yellow one on this diagram, could potentially go here. I believe this was for an event. There's not actually anything wrong with this piece of land, correct?
It's correct.
Okay. Okay, just making sure. So this is a potential location that we identified. This one does have some constraints with some utilities nearby. However, according to this diagram, I scaled off of their plans and it looks like it would fit between the existing sidewalk and that utility area. So again, here's a picture of option B. C is that green one that you see up toward the northeast end of the property. And that's where they currently have a garden. Now the garden could be relocated elsewhere on the site because it is indeed a garden and gardens can move, landscaping can move. So that's something that we still think is an option. We noted on an older aerial from I think 2012 that the garden wasn't there a few years ago. I'm not sure when it was installed, but it is something that we consider as staff as something that's movable. We wouldn't request, the garage here to be moved somewhere else to make room for the pavilion, but gardens can certainly be transplanted other places. And finally, option D, which is what you see in blue there, really just involves rotating the proposed pavilion at the proposed size to actually be perpendicular to what they're proposing, and it appears that they can meet that setback requirement by doing this. However, it could impact a mature evergreen tree. They might have to remove a tree in order to make this one work. It's a little bit tighter than I think they might like toward the parking area. However, it does work, it does fit, and it's something that they should consider because it's close to what they're asking for as far as the location now. And here's a photo of that area. I'm sure they would move the pumpkins for the pavilion as well. We did also want to note that we saw there was a pergola at the site, and I saw in my diagram here that it happens to meet the 40-foot setback as well. So one of the petitioners' comments and their findings of fact was that when the property was originally annexed, that they had on their plat that they were required just a 35-foot setback. Now it looks like with this pergola, they were able to meet the 40-foot setback, and staff would like to make sure that the zoning board considers that that accessory structure was able to meet the setback. So why shouldn't the pavilion be able to meet it as well? And just to also note about the petitioner's concern about the 35-foot setback that's on their plat of survey, that's something that isn't grandfathered in. We don't grandfather setbacks from when the properties were annexed or whatever is on the plat of survey. Those aren't always accurate to current code, so we do have to go by what's in the current code in section 5 of the zoning ordinance, so that it's the 40-foot setback that applies. We also wanted to show an alternate pavilion that met the 720 square foot requirement. So that's what you see here, alternate pavilion E. This is in the same location roughly that they're proposing now. Again, this is moved to meet the setback requirement. So this is what it looks like for them to completely meet the code requirement. Unlike the location, staff believes there might be an argument for the uniqueness for the size of the pavilion, just because it isn't necessarily a residential property. This isn't in someone's backyard for them to have big parties on Friday nights. This is for a church to use. So it's more of a community use rather than just a personal use. So we thought there could be an argument for why they need the larger pavilion to have the community events rather than to just have a big pavilion in your backyard. So there is a uniqueness to that. So we did think that they met the findings potentially for the size. The location, we believe there are some other options though. So with that, I will leave you with the graphic of the proposed pavilion location. And if you have any other questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
In your proposal, Stephanie, is there any consideration about underground utilities? Does anything conflict with underground utilities?
I'm not aware if they've done a Julie locate at the site to know where the underground utilities are. That's absolutely something we'd want to look at because you don't want to go digging and pouring foundations when you've got utilities underground. So that's something that we would have to take into consideration. We did talk to the village engineer, and I did ask her to look at that diagram with the 4 different options and weigh in on any of the drainage impacts from that. The different locations, and she did say that she did not believe that would have any negative effect on drainage.
Okay, can you put up the graph with all the proposals on there?
Here.
On proposal D, can the pavilion be shifted so it would be facing, or the northwest, parallel to the parking lot?
It probably could. It would come really close, I think, to crossing that 40-foot setback line. I didn't play with it at a whole lot of angles there. I just kind of put it perpendicular to what they were proposing because I think it fits better that way. And I would like for them to not have to remove that mature evergreen tree if they do not have to. It's going to be close, though, unless they shift it a little bit to the north from what I'm showing here.
Anybody else? Good, okay. Is there anything that the petitioner would like to add? It's your floor.
I hate public speaking.
I think we all do.
My name is Chuck Grinke. I'm one of the elders of Faith United Presbyterian Church, and I'm one of the. Can everybody hear me? I'm one of them that took the task of putting this together so we can have a pavilion for the church and community. We've looked at a lot of things as far as buildings, structures, and stuff like that, and we've walked our grounds numerous times. In fact, I mow.
Okay.
So I'm pretty aware of them. Some of the spots that we have that you have put down as alternate Plan A, we do have people that do need ADA access. Plan A, where they have it to the side of the building, would not function at all as far as any of the functions for the church in that. There's not really an exit on that side of the church to go to the pavilion. We would have to completely build sidewalks, and there is a septic field right where Plan A would be at.
Okay.
Plan B, it's a nice flat location exactly for what we have, that little fence for the kids to run around in. Between Plan B and Plan C, in one of the pictures that Stephanie had shown you is like a wooded area back there. That is actually a lowland, and it does flood, and when that area does flood, it floods our church. And we've mopped our church out several times because that is overrunning with water. All the area from the school, the parking lots, from the buildings behind us, and every place drains down into that area right there. So where the garden is, and that's why the garden is placed there, is because that is a wetland. The minister's house is next door behind the garage there, and we do have a lot of times where partial area of his backyard is flooded because of that. If we put a pavilion in either one of those spots, drainage would be going all right into that lowland area and would be flooding our church constantly. Plus we have high tension lines or power lines behind us, and we do have a utility pole at the front. If we use Plan C again, where the garden is, I'm a retired police officer, and I'm usually the one that yells about the kids running through the parking lot and stuff like that. That'd be very dangerous for kids running across our parking lots and have to run over to the pavilion. Our pavilion, our yard, is used for numerous things, including the pumpkin patch that we have going now, but we have a vacation Bible school. We have over approximately 100 kids for a week running around out there into the area where the pavilion would be. Usually we put up a tent for them to have activities out there. They have activities behind the church also. With them running across to where the pavilion would be very dangerous with cars pulling in and out of the lot. Also, that would be not really too good for ADA accessible either. Your Plan D, the way we set the pavilion up would be, I think it was east and west. We would like to eventually put solar panels on there, and if we rotate it, there'd be no use for solar panels at all. Eventually, we'd like to kind of make our church a little bit more modern and use the electricity and stuff that we could get from solar panels. I'll stop touching the pulpit here. We have an idea of putting solar panels on it in that. And we do really I'm not crazy over cutting down any trees. We try not to. In fact, what we're doing yearly now is we're planting a tree on church property for people who have passed. In our church is a I'm lost for it, memorial forum. So we are planting more trees around there and that. Where we had set where we'd like to set the pavilion, the drainage off the top of the pavilion would come down through gutters and drain out front into the ditch and out, where there'd be no problems with excessive flow of water or anything. And we have a sidewalk right there, which is very ADA accessible. It is also very accessible because we have sliding glass windows. We do a community meal once a month. We started that a couple of years ago, and now we've got 4 churches that are involved in doing this community meal. So we've progressed a whole lot with it. In the one community meal, I think it was 2 months ago, we had over 70 people there. And we started off with about 5 or 6. We did start off with feeding them outside, and when we do set up community meal outside, we do have a big group of people that come out, they see it, they stop. And anytime we're also known as a little friendly church on the hill. We had that little pavilion there, and we made a couple of tables or benches there that you'll see people walk their dogs, they'll come over and sit down for a while and relax and stuff. So it's just a nice place to sit and meditate. And in my proposal, I didn't list all the different groups that we have. We have Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. We have a group called Down in the Southland. They're parents of Down syndrome kids that come out and use our church. We have 3 different AAE meetings. We have Allian comes out, which is a support group. We've had several weddings and funerals lately, which that definitely the pavilion would be used for weddings and possibly very many funeral services. And it's just not people from our church. We get a lot of people that come in and ask because they know our church. And they ask to have their weddings there and have their funerals there because of the hospitality and that, which I got to give a hooray for. Our church is fantastic. We do have a couple of one of the local schools will come over and use our church for one weekend for activities that they have. Love Inc. has used our church also, and we have Alliance Closet right now that's used in our church for distributing goods. And we do have rummage sales and other functions and everything else that we participate in. I hope I filled in everything pretty good. Do you have any questions, or?
Is everybody that, I think, I have some questions for you. I think the say we scratched, okay, we scratch A, we scratch B, we scratch C. Getting rid of all those, what now, with the plan D the way it is, going north-south, as opposed to east-west, you would have to remove a tree or would not have to remove a tree?
If we went north and south, we'd have to take out one of our trees.
The one right by the edge of the
Yeah,
driveway there?
next to the driveway, it hit the corner of it. There's
Okay.
2 trees right there.
They're doing the same with their proposal. It's right in the middle of that tree.
Okay, so you have to remove one tree no matter what?
Our proposal, we should not have to move the one tree.
Okay.
It will be close to it, but I don't think we'll have to move it at all.
And if I may, keep in mind that that's because of the proposed size. So if there's a way for them to get a slightly smaller pavilion in that location where it's perpendicular to the request, they could potentially just put a slightly smaller pavilion and not have to remove the tree.
Okay. And the proposed solar panels, that's my other question. You had a guy come out, talk to you about solar panels, tell you what would work and what wouldn't work?
I have a gentleman right here that would be kind of more expert on that than I am.
Because-
And he's the one that constructed all the drawings for us and everything else.
Okay.
And I'll let him tell you his credentials because they're a lot better than mine.
Cool. Love to hear it.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to present our proposal. My name is Edgar Montalvo. I am a retired lieutenant colonel in the United States Army Reserves, having served over 30 years as a engineer officer with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers the entire time.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I have a master's degree in civil engineering and am a certified project management professional. And have reviewed each and every one of these locations, the alternate locations that are presented, in addition to others. And we evaluated them on a very long list of criteria and found them all, for one reason or another, unsuitable. We looked at the topography of the locations, for example. Alternate location 1 is at the top of a hill, which actually would prevent access for handicapped or those with mobility issues. We're in the process. Oh, the other thing I wanted to add is not only am I a longtime member, 30-year plus member of Faith United Presbyterian Church, but I'm an elder, currently the clerk of session and the bookkeeper. So in that regard, the criteria we use to evaluate all of the locations on the property, the topography, elevation. So location 1 doesn't permit access. Location C.
When you say 1, to be clear, you mean A.
Myself and a whole committee, they have so alternate site A, I mean.
Yeah, A, okay.
That's too high. There's no access. We're in the process of actually making our entire facility handicapped accessible and adding a new structure that's not going to be, is contrary to that objective. Alternate location C is actually in a swamp area. So it's not, we'd have to wind up putting perhaps a retention basin somewhere else to accommodate runoff. We looked at existing utilities, both overhead and underground, and A, B, and C have their proximity to overhead wires. There's ones right along there's an easement actually on our property that Edison and others have got overhead lines at that location. And then there's, we looked at access, proximity to parking. So again, A doesn't, you know, and how close it is. If you're going to have, you know, haul coolers or whatever it is, you're going to have a wedding, and now you got to haul that stuff up a hill, where the others, basically all three of them, B, C, and D, you're kicking off of a parking lot, so it's not too far. Ease of construction and cost of consideration, though, also comes into play. Optimal placement to permit solar panels. That's when you looked at specifically required that we have an east-west orientation of the ridge line of the structure. Chicago has literally just over 190 days worth of sunlight. So if you want to take advantage of what would perhaps not be an optimal latitude to have solar panels, you want to make sure that you get as much sun as you can for each of those 190 days of sunlight, you know, good days that we have in Chicago. And that requires that you have an east-west placement. Basically, all the panels have to be looking south.
Okay.
And then the impact on the community, we looked at things like put traffic lines and having negative impact on the community. This is what we also found. There were the 2 other items we found. One, that there's no other homes currently in that Kimberly Heights subdivision that is set back 40 feet. They're all 30 feet currently. A. B, when we looked at the zoning requirements on size, the sizing requirement is for an auxiliary building, which is not, the zoning ordinance specifies a gazebo and pavilion type structures are not considered buildings in the same sense. A pavilion by its very definition is going to be an open structure, so there's no enclosed structure like a garage would be an auxiliary building. So we didn't think that asking for a larger pavilion, because it's just, we already have a size constraint within our chapel, and so we didn't want to make it too small and then kind of regret that after the fact. So we want to try to get as big as we can afford, keeping in mind that, you know, I can help keep some of the costs down by putting in solar panel, because ultimately I'll keep any kind of electricity costs will pay for itself. So all those things were taken into consideration and looked at, and basically for all those reasons, the property committee had elected the location that we proposed in our zoning variance request. Any questions?
Does anybody else have any questions?
These solar panels, what will they provide power for?
Well, they got power because you want to have lighting. For example, if you were going to have, we currently have a pumpkin patch. You see the pumpkins out there? We have lights out, literally your light structures hanging. You would have lights under the pavilion for evening hours. You'd have lights for when you have overcast days. You can have lights out for evening programs on the weekends. You know, so if the evening program, sun goes down at 6 o'clock now.
In the pavilion area, or?
In the pavilion area itself, that's correct. If I have solar panels and a battery, I don't need to run additional electric lines. I can, but that's something I'm hoping to keep to a minimum. I don't want to run all sorts of type of electrical lines, and if that's possible. But the solar panels, in order to get the optimal voltage out of it, I need to have them placed they have to be directed south.
Just for the pavilion area?
Just for the pavilion, yes, sir.
Got any more? No. Okay. As far as the solar panels go, what would you have done if you had the pavilion already set north-south? Would you still be able to use solar panels? You said the optimal is east-west, but I'm pretty sure that there's been buildings that have been put north-south and they've been able to orient the panels.
Well, if I orient it north and south, I'm only going to get half a day's worth of sun.
No, I mean, building is one way. Panels face the other. So you have to set the panels, if the building goes east-west, the panels you want them to face
The panels
south.
will be placed on the south ridge. It's a gable roof, and they'd be placed on the southern half of the roof.
Okay.
And all of those are going to have a southern exposure.
Okay.
And they will have light the entire day. We have, those 190 days that we have light.
And
Good sun.
And the people, are you putting in the solar panels?
Am I?
You're going to be the project manager for the solar
I'm the
panels?
fifth, yes, sir.
Okay, so solar, I'm trying to get some education here. So solar panels, are you able to adjust them throughout the year, or are they stuck in one position the whole year?
Well, depending on the pitch of the roof,
Are they adjustable is all I'm asking. That's to simplify the question. Are they adjustable?
they can be.
Based
And
on the, well, I looked it up today.
based on whether winter or
the
summer.
zenith and the, what's the other one?
What you normally do is
I tried to
based on the
educate myself.
latitude.
That's it. Yeah.
What you want to do is, I don't have the exact numbers for Chicago. I did all the analysis for a project I had in Lubbock. But in Lubbock, I was doing a 212 roof. At 212, that's the perfect angle for summer. And then the solar, the equinox, both spring and fall, you then raise it. It would be adjustable once, twice a year to catch up, because the sun is at a lower angle in the winter, and they would go up.
Okay.
Now, they cost more, and they extract more energy out of the sun when you do that. That's very beneficial here in Chicago as well.
Okay.
The fact that the roof is pitched adds to your argument.
So in the summer, you just lay them basically flat on the roof, and then in the winter, you can raise the pitch to capture more of the sun at the lower elevation.
For some reason, I had it in my head that the roof of the pavilion was flat.
Yeah.
So that's why I was getting to that. Okay. All right. Let's see if I had anything else here. So no trees in the way, solar panels. You're going for so your guys are going to try and save a little money, put in the non-adjustable ones eventually.
Right.
What's the plan on how long that's going to be till you do that?
Well, we're running ahead of schedule on fundraising.
Okay.
But we've suspended it because we wanted to know how this was going to come out.
Okay.
And if we needed to, go back to the drawing board and try to figure out how to be, if we weren't going to be allowed the variance, I would figure that there's the option A is to do it during the construction, so then by spring it's all in, or and B, 1 or 2 years after, once we've raised enough money to do that.
So it's not an if, it's not a maybe, it's a you're doing it.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
this is definitely going to
Okay.
make money. This is,
Okay.
He's sworn in, remember, as he's saying that. That's just my 2 cents.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you
I'm
very
good.
much.
Anybody else got any questions for him? Good, okay. Thank you very much. Anybody else in the audience want to have a say at the podium there?
I just have a question. What would be the difference between speaking during the hearing and speaking during the public comments? And
Since our lawyer is in here, I really don't.
I can answer that for you.
You can answer that? Good.
So if you want to speak during the public hearing, it will be part of what they put on the record for this particular request. You'll get to speak before they deliberate and make their recommendation. If you wait till public comment, it will be after they've already made their recommendation. So if you have something that you want to say before they make a recommendation, now is the time.
That's why I stood up before. Adam Malik, I'm the pastor of the church, also a resident of the neighborhood in which this monstrous structure is slated to be placed. I'll put my address down when I'm finished speaking. In my illustrious yet brief career as a minister, there's a thing I keep running up against as I talk to people who are outside of the bounds of the church or faith-based lives, and that is the church just seeks to feed itself. It just wants something more for itself. It's got a handout. It's trying to get you to do something. This structure proposed in the way that we are doing it, the fashion, the size, is our effort to say to people, this is not for us. This is for the community. That is why A, B, and C, right off the bat for me, regardless of any of the other structural pieces, are non-options, because it's put in a place that says it's a way, it's something for us in the church. If you go and look at the way a lot of churches are structured, they put things back in a way so that people who are a part of it, members if you will, a la a country club, have access, but the general public does not. We are seeking to honor the call that we've been asked by Jesus Christ, my boss, to reach out into the community. And so putting the space there allows us to be able to do that. As far as the size goes, you heard mention of it, our chapel is quite limited. I've officiated almost 20 weddings in 6 years, which might not be a lot if you're Catholic, but for Presbyterians, that's a lot. And without exception, all of them have said, this is too small, and they've had to have the wedding somewhere else. If we are able to have something outside, now that opens up a whole new avenue for us, and people who are having their weddings at halls and stuff, not that that's bad, but here we could have it at a sacred space, and I think that that changes the game a little bit for the way it affects people. Speaking to that, we also have this community meal that you heard a little bit about, and that is swelling. It is growing beyond to what we can continue to be able to do comfortably. We want to be able to have a space like that that is more open, that doesn't require people to come into the church, because when we did switch from going outdoors to indoors, there was this huge drop-off at first, because there's this apprehension, what are they going to do now that we're in their building? Whereas outside, it's open, it's accessible, and there's a certain freedom that people have and an ease to doing it. So while I know that there are a lot of structural things, I thank Chuck and Edgar for having that expertise. Mine is more of a matter of the heart, and that is that we want to be able to have people feel comfortable in a space and welcome. I say this also knowing I live next door, and putting up a flagship that says, come here and hang out in this space, automatically invites more traffic to the area where I live. And I spoke with my wife, and she's ready to have kids come and skateboard or hang out or talk and do that sort of thing. And so I'm eager that that would be a space that people would come and sit and speak and feel welcome to be in the presence. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He's obviously used to the podium. He's good up there. Anybody want to follow up the best speaker yet, right? The guy that knows what he's doing up there? Because I don't feel very comfortable up here either, so. Did you want to speak, ma'am?
I just wanted to know, you said if we talk during the public comments, you've already made up your mind as to.
Well, number one is that we are a recommending board. We're gonna recommend to the board whether we think they should go forward with this. We kind of do all the little nitpicky work and all they call it the heavy lifting. They see the thing on, say, oh, we recommended it, so they don't always go with our recommendation, so just put that out there. But yeah, so if you want to speak to something that would affect our decision, yes, you should speak before the public comment. So now's your time.
I have to go.
Well, If you are able, we'd like you to come to the podium if you cannot. Oh, yeah. Hi, how are you?
Good. My name is Jerry Gajewski. I live across the street from the church, and I've been living there since 1969. I've seen a lot of pastors. I've seen a lot of things that go on at that church, and I'm just proud of how they act, what they do. Lately it is more active. There's a lot more people there enjoying the church and what the Pastor Adam has done. I have been to the Thursday dinner, and it's done perfectly for people to feel comfortable and to just socialize, and it's a nice hour and 15 minutes that you can spend. These people have done nothing with the neighborhood, have done nothing at all. It has been decorated. It's done greatly. Not for anonymity, but I am one of the members of the Saturday morning meeting. I have been there on Saturdays through the years where we've had to ask Pastor Adam that your basement is flooded because we had a heavy rain, and the men would have to come there and vacuum and clean it up. That's not once. That's been many times in the 13 years I've been going on Saturday morning. We have felt welcome there because the other two meetings, I know they have welcomed us. They have given us that place that whatever we can do, they have helped us on a daily basis to make sure our lives are better one day at a time. And there's nothing we can ask more than to help them out because they have really helped the community. They have helped everybody that has been there. And, I have watched, them grow on a yearly basis. And lately, they have grown in activities. And I can understand the pavilion because they have kids there. They have people that can play in their parking lot, and there is no trouble. They don't wreck my yard. They don't do anything. I'm just happy to have them there, and I wouldn't think that what they have planned to do would have any deterioration to our community or my house. So, thank you.
So, Jerry, you're not even a member of the church. You just live across the street.
Right.
Awesome. Thanks for coming in. Okay. Anybody else? Come on up, sir.
My name is Nord Wolcott, and I'm also part of the property ministry team at the church. I'm a property ministry elder. There's a saying that says location, 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 location is everything. And the point that many people have brought up, but one point that we didn't bring up is turning the pavilion against that 30-foot setback to the 40-foot, turning it the way that we're not seeing in the pictures. It makes it visible both from the Gaynell and also the 167th Street passageways. And the visibility of that and the visibility of what our church is doing in the community is huge. And it comes by a lot of different things, obviously word of mouth, obviously some advertising, but also just by personal observation. And when people see things in the community that are going on and they see something happening that's visible as they go by 167th Street or as they turn into Gaynell, it brings them in, it makes them curious. The pumpkin patch is a good example. We saw a picture of that somewhere here tonight. There's not a lot of advertising that goes on for that. A lot of it is the neighborhood, but it's also people coming by, seeing what we have, because that is very visible from 167th as well as Gaynell. They see it, they stop in, they see the activities, and they become a part of the Faith United community. We have brought several members to our church in the last 2 or 3 years that have just stopped in to see what the pumpkins are all about. We start to talk to them, we take the pumpkins to their car, we just commune with them. And before you know it, we ask them, do they have a church home? They maybe sometimes do, they maybe sometimes don't. We invite them to come and experience what we do at Faith United. And I don't know, we've had at least, 5 or 6 new members come to our church because of that. We're not using the pumpkin or the pavilion necessarily for that reason. My point is the visibility of the pumpkins basically are oriented the same way as the pavilion would be, right, as you look in the drawing there. And it's the visibility from the street. People see the activity, they come, they ask questions, they get involved. And so whatever we do there, I think is a benefit to our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question about that comment. So you're saying that by turning this 90 degrees on that same site that you're talking about, people aren't going to see it?
I'm going to say, I don't know for sure if they're going to see it as well as they would see it if it was turned in the way that we're asking it to be considered.
I can speak to that.
All right.
Yeah.
Still Adam Malik. The problem is there's a hill there. You can see it there. That little, it's a sign is what it is, right there in the middle of the red line on the bottom of the screen there.
Okay.
There's a sign that's on quite an elevated hill. If you have the way it's proposed with D, the rest of that hill would block it. But if you turn it and we have it sticking out there, you would be able to catch it coming by on 167. People would be able to see it then. That's what the gentleman is speaking about.
Okay, thank you.
And just to clarify, I think he means if you're going westbound on 167,
Yes. Yeah.
you would be able to see it better. However, you can still see it if you're going eastbound.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, seeing that there are no further audience members who would like to speak, I'd open it up for any more questions from the members. If there are no further comments or questions, I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion.
Do I have a second? Thank you. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? All right, public hearing is closed. Do the motion now. We move to in the positive, yeah?
I think you should have some deliberation so you know kind of
right.
what the consensus is, and we'd also like to put some findings on the record.
Okay. Are you going to go over the findings, or?
It depends. I can go over the staff findings in the report,
Yeah.
but
Can
it
you
sounds
go
like
over the
there
staff
might.
Findings? We
Yep.
I thought you were going to mention that in your report.
Yeah.
That'd be good to go over that.
I can go through that. Obviously, there's been testimony at the meeting tonight, and there may be new findings to add to this, or something that would contradict a finding that's in the staff report. So just to let you know, these aren't necessarily the findings. These are our suggested findings based on our information. And I would suggest that you discuss these and maybe create some of your own findings based on this meeting after I go through these here.
Okay.
Okay. For standard number 1, and I'll read these aloud just so the audience knows the topic that I'm discussing. Category number 1.
Before we go any, can we kind of just explain what
Sure.
the findings of fact are so that everybody in the audience kind of knows what we are charged with making our decision based on?
Yep.
Whatever decision the decision may be.
Yep.
So,
Thank you. That's a
yeah.
great idea. So Section 10 of the Village's zoning ordinance has standards for variances, also known as variations. So in order for the zoning board and ultimately the village board to grant a variation or a variance, these specific standards have to be met. So there has to be facts that are provided that show that you can meet these standards. So we have 3 standards and then a 4th that has some additional considerations as well. And so I'll go through our findings for the first 3. If you'd also like to discuss the 4th one, you're welcome to do that as well, but we didn't provide draft findings for that one. The petitioner had the ability to provide their own answers in their application to these 3 findings, and I will provide the staff findings from our report that was published last week, and then the zoning board members are welcome to add their own findings as well. So again, we have to have evidence that all of these are met in order for a variance to be granted or recommended. So number 1 is that the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it is located. The staff's findings said the property can yield a reasonable return if a pavilion is constructed meeting village codes. The petitioner can revise the pavilion plans to conform to village codes and still be able to have a pavilion on the site. For number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The staff findings said, the property is unique since the land use is a church within a predominantly single-family residential area. The lot size is over 2 acres, which is significantly larger than most of the parcels that are directly adjacent. The petitioner's request for the location of the pavilion is not unique, since it could be located in many other areas of the property and meet the required setbacks. The petitioner's request for the size of the pavilion is unique based on the land use, which is a church, and the size of the parcel, since it's much larger than other surrounding parcels. And for number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. Staff's findings said the character of the area could be altered by a large pavilion within the required front yard setback. A less impactful option would be reducing the size and complying with the required setbacks. There are no other accessory structures within front yard setbacks in the vicinity. The petitioner's existing pergola meets the required front yard setback as well. And those were our findings.
Okay. As far as, in my opinion, first of all, I totally support your efforts for doing this. I think it's a great idea. I think it's well thought out from a ministry standpoint, an outreach standpoint. I think it's fantastic what you guys are doing over there. As far as the finding of fact, in my opinion, the findings of fact, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return. I take that one as not applicable because the church has been there a long time. I don't think it's going anywhere, right? Unique circumstances, I agree that there are unique circumstances as far as the size of the structure. So size of the structure is not even a question in my opinion. I came in here tonight thinking that why would they not just put it this way? So I needed those questions answered. You guys did a good job at presenting your case for that. I've been there. My kids went to VBS there. Been to the pumpkin patch. I know that the size of your church is small on the inside. It's tiny. So that would help you. I struggle with the fact that that 10 feet sticking out is going to alter the essential character of the locality because that whole entire area is pretty much your property. So no matter what happens with however board votes, I think that you guys are doing the right thing, and I have no idea what these guys are going to say, but in my opinion, I think that it's a tough thing because we're charged with following village code, and it's hard. So, but you guys have you guys put up a good argument in my opinion. So, anybody else?
I think they adequately explained why proposals A, B, and C would not work for them. I initially had some question about proposal D, but they explained the solar panels, and that was adequate. And also, Pastor Adams said the visibility, which may be a minor consideration, but it is still a consideration. Whether the building is turned or shortened, it poses no safety factor in any event. They have a big enough lot, so visibility is not going to be a factor. If they have children playing around the building, it won't be a factor because it's far enough away from the street at 30 feet or 40 feet.
Okay. Anybody else? So currently, Stephanie, we're going to move in the positive, correct?
Yeah, you would make your motion in the positive. If you want, you can separate the 2 variance requests if you would feel more comfortable voting on the location and the size separately.
Okay.
I'm not sure if everyone's on the same page with both of them because I haven't heard all the discussion. But if you'd like to separate them, you're welcome to, or you can have them in one motion as it's written in your packet.
I would like to make a motion to read it as is. Just read it. I would like to make a motion to recommend to the village board that the village board grant the petitioner Faith United Presbyterian Church the following variations. A 10-foot variation from section 3H1 of the zoning ordinance where the required front yard setback for an accessory structure is 40 feet in the R1 single family residential zoning district. And 2, a 336 square foot variation from section 3(1)(2)B of the zoning ordinance where the maximum floor area for an accessory structure is 720 square feet. These variations would allow the petitioner to construct a 1,056 square foot pavilion at a 30-foot setback from the West Gaynell Road property line at 6200 167th Street in the R1 single-family residential zoning district. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. I guess we have Madam Clerk call the roll on that, yes?
Was it your second?
Sure.
Asiak?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Gaskell?
Yes.
Shaw, or Fitzgerald, sorry.
Yes. So the motion to recommend it passed. Does not mean that you guys have it yet, so get excited. But don't get super excited because the board could still, in the past, we voted all one way and they've shot it down, so.
And I'd like to add an addendum that Pastor Adam put in a good word to his boss for all of us.
Right. And
We'll have a post-meeting prayer in the parking lot. You're welcome to join.
And also the, I came in, it's already over, I came in tonight, you know, I always read the stuff very thoroughly, and I came in tonight going, they can just turn. Let's just go on with that. But what got me, it's 10 feet to reach out, not only into the required setback, but I think you're, like you said, what sold me was you guys are reaching out into the community. And that's all I needed to hear. I mean, good argument. So hopefully you guys, good luck with it the rest of the way.
Can I ask a question of process? real quick?
Sure.
So I came here understanding that this is like hoop one of a potential 3 hoops. So should we appear then at the full planning commission meeting?
So-
Forward, or
Is Plan Commission?
No.
Yeah.
So the next step is a village board meeting.
Okay.
You would be scheduled for the November 7th village board meeting for what we call first reading, which is where they do just basically a quick introduction. There's not a presentation like this. It's usually you would just come and answer any questions if they had them. We don't typically do a long presentation like this. Like Chairman Fitzgerald said earlier, we get into the nitty-gritty here so that it goes quicker when the board gets it. So the first meeting at the village board would be November 7th. They meet at 7:30 in this very same room. And then the second meeting would be November 21st. And again, 7:30 in this room. And that's when they would potentially vote on approval, adopt an ordinance. And you would have that ordinance, which would be your official document of your approval. And that would go on village records. We'd give you a copy, all those things.
So the 21st is when we should really be here to speak, I guess.
If they have any questions, generally they ask them at the first meeting because they direct the attorney to write the ordinance. And typically if they've taken the attorney's time to write the ordinance, that means they're moving forward with it. So
we should be here the 7th.
7th. Yep. Yep, and we'll keep in touch. I've got Chuck's contact information. If anyone else would like my card, I'd be happy to email you with the agenda for those meetings so you get a reminder.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Are there any issues we need to discuss for the good of the order? I don't have any. No? Okay. So now is the time we can, for public comment. If anybody in the public would like to address us tonight, please come to the podium. Seeing that there are none, let the record reflect that there are no further public comments. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.